Good day, let's get right into it. This not tutorial we will use only locally sourced materials to reduce our impact to the environment, so things like wood and shopping carts. We will be assuming things can't snap or break because I don't know how to calculate that stuff. We won't be going faster than light because light is a very sore loser and we don't want to upset it. So, I'll set the scene based on some random pictures I found just like real exam questions. Just follow along. There is a farmer who, after a long day's work, heads home. They put some potatoes in a bowl to feed to his tractor, but he hears some strange noises coming from one of the potatoes. Here is a picture of a chicken, and yeah, basically they have had enough of these people that ride horses on the roads and block the traffic. Anyway, later in the night while watching over the fields they notice something. The moon. It has been eyeing up the crops this whole time. How has this gone unnoticed for so long? Being the responsible and protective farmer they are, they set about solving this issue before it is too late. Now, being a farming farmer, they have an almost unlimited amount of wooden planks, shopping trolleys and metal fencing cable. If you haven't seen where I'm going with this, let me illustrate. It's pretty simple. We throw something towards the moon so that the moon is shifted from its current orbit, while the recoil will send the Earth on a slightly altered path, causing it to collide with the moon. Now you may be wondering, what are the shopping carts for? Surely this can be achieved pretty simply with just the wood and metal wire? Well, while you wouldn't be wrong, it would require more calculations, so we will need the shopping carts. Back to the farmer now. They have been drawing up the plans for this project while I was making sure we were all on the same page. Let me talk you through them. So what we already know is that the Earth is 5.9722 times 10 to the power of 24 kilograms and orbits the Sun at 29,780 meters per second on average, while the Moon only weighs 7.3476730 times 10 to the power of 22 kilograms and orbits the Earth at 1,022 meters per second on average. Now what we want to do is to strike the Moon when the collision's effect would be most amplified. This would be when the moon is between the Earth and the Sun, because, just like how the moon tries to steal the ocean, the Sun tries to steal the moon. This all works in theory, but how hard exactly are we supposed to hit the moon so that the recoil and the impact are exactly the right amount to divert the moon's orbit into the way of the Earth? Well, I don't know too much about orbital mechanics and the two-body problem, but launching something with 6.56942 times 10 to the 24 newtons when the moon is 86% of its way round its orbit seems like a good starting point. The blue moon is the normal orbit, while the red one shows the newer and improved path. Oh, would you look at that, it worked on the first try. I definitely haven't left the simulation running for 40 hours testing all possible values until it worked. So realistically the moon would probably explode when it gets hit with that type of energy. For reference, that's the same amount of energy stored in 5.88 times 10 to the 18 Big Macs. And yes, an exploded moon would achieve the same goal as sending it on an alternate path, but that's not what we want, so for this we will assume it stays in one piece. So now that we know the amount of force we need and when exactly we need to apply the force, all that is left is to construct something that is able to actually exert this much force. This is where the wood and metal wire come in. Here is a little plan I prepared earlier. While this as a base plan seems to work, I did some quick calculations and found it would need to be revised. This is the new, better design. Of course there are several other ways for setting up a system like this, so feel free to experiment. So let me explain. This design uses cherry bark oak due to its very high bending strength to create the outside ring that holds up the steel cables. The wood has a width and height of 100 kilometers, and there are a total of 2,126 of these structures arranged in this circular shape. I'm aware that the final product is larger than the Earth, but just bear with me for a second. The steel cables that extend from the tops of these structures have a radius of 50 kilometers because, as probably none of you know, steel cables can extend by 0.1% of their original length before undergoing plastic deformation. The reason I assume none of you know is because I had to repeatedly email an unnamed company that makes steel cables asking them to try find out how much they could stretch before they were no longer elastic. If you are this company, feel free to slide me some steel cables for a shout out. You most likely know who you are. Now back to explaining why specifically steel cables. Firstly, they were the only company that replied, so I couldn't use any other cable type. But more importantly, steel is very hard to stretch, meaning that if we do stretch it, it will store a lot of force just like a spring. So now that the farmer knows what to do, they can just go and build it. And while they do that, I'll explain how it is that we will actually load this mechanism. As you can see, this is the shopping cart from earlier. The steel cables connect to a single point in the middle which goes down and uses the front wheel of the shopping cart as a pulley, so it saves me some calculations. It stays attached to the ground because the farmer gave it a slap and said this won't be going anywhere. The single cable is then passed to the system. It is just your everyday gear system. Basically, this fellow here with another shopping cart is standing in a large hamster wheel made of the same wood we had earlier. The green human and the shopping cart weigh 700 newtons together. Every full rotation is 19.3849 times 10 to the 20 F of the way there. So to put it simply, the fellow just needs to walk the equivalent of going around the Earth 7.357 times 10 to the 14 times to load this creation. Oh, and don't worry, I haven't forgotten about the actual projectile. You might know what the Eiffel Tower looks like, and another great thing about the Eiffel Tower is that it has a known mass. This means that we know exactly how many Eiffel Towers we need to make out of the remaining shopping carts to generate enough force to deorbit the moon. If you are wondering, it's only 3,01,736,318, which relative to the other numbers is actually very small. And there you have it, a simple and environmentally friendly way of deorbiting the moon. See ya.